Tomorrow is Election Day. Again. Tomorrow is Maine, which is state number 9, the 9th state to go through some sort of decision-making process toward picking a Republican nominee for president. And after Iowa and New Hampshire and South Carolina and Florida and Nevada, Missouri, Minnesota, and Colorado, let's count Missouri for the sake of argument, even though we might have to change this when they vote again, and it counts. But counting Missouri, Rick Santorum has so far won 4 states. Mitt Romney has won 3 states. Newt Gingrich has won 1 state. At the beginning of this cycle, there were like a zillion people running for this nomination, but now we are down to 4, and all but one of them has won in at least 1 state. The only one of these guys who hasn't won is Ron Paul. Weirdly, though, Ron Paul seems the happiest of any of them in his I just lost another primary and or caucus late-night speeches, right? Ron Paul seems both happy and like he has something up his sleeve.
And we do have to remember, you know, the straw vote is one thing, but then there's one other thing called delegates. Yeah! I honestly congratulate him. He ran a good campaign, but I also said I would see him flown into caucus states. When the dust settles, I think there's a very good chance that we're going to have the maximum number of delegates coming out of Minnesota. We will be going to the caucus states, and we will be promoting the whole idea of getting more delegates because that's the name of the game, and we will pursue it. There's some other good news, too, and it's an ongoing caucus, and it's over on the East Coast. I think it's the state called Maine.
Even though Ron Paul has not won anything yet, he seems very happy and excited about his prospects, at least in the states that hold caucuses instead of primaries. Here's the thing, though. We've already had 4 states with caucuses, and Ron Paul hasn't won any of them. So the caucus state thing may be his strategy, but it doesn't seem to be working. Or is it? After the Colorado and Minnesota caucuses this week, Dave Weigel, our previous guest this hour, highlighted a rather arcane press release from the Ron Paul campaign. Quote, "We may well win in Minnesota and do far better in Colorado than yesterday's polls indicate." This was after the Minnesota results, and this is what we all think the results were from Minnesota and Colorado. But according to the Ron Paul campaign, after those states closed, they think they might win in Minnesota. In Colorado and in Nevada, quote, "We will have good numbers among the actual delegates awarded, far exceeding our straw poll numbers." The campaign says also, in Minnesota, where we have finished a solid second, it's true Ron Paul beat Mitt Romney. Romney came in 3rd in Minnesota. But the campaign says, in Minnesota, where we have finished a solid second, we also have a strong majority of the state convention delegates. The Ron Paul campaign is well organized to win the bulk of delegates there. They're saying they're going to win in Minnesota even though they came in 2nd there. The Ron Paul campaign is saying that even though they came in 2nd, they could win. Again, we may well win in Minnesota and do far better in Colorado than yesterday's polls indicate. I want to explain what I think is going on here. Sort of need a prop. I don't have a prop. Let's say these are the people at the caucus. And the people at the caucus love Rick Santorum. Yay, we love Rick Santorum. A great majority of us here at the caucus, we love Rick Santorum. And after the caucus meets and they vote on who they support, the people running the caucus, the local Republican officials say, okay, people, you've expressed your views. You love Rick Santorum. You can leave now if you want, but we're going to stick around and do some party business. You can stay or go. It's up to you. And everybody goes, yay, we just voted for Rick Santorum. We love Rick Santorum. We're going to go home and launder our sweater vests or whatever. So after these people leave, what happens in the party business part of the meeting is that the delegates get chosen to go to the state convention. And the convention is where they're actually going to assign delegates to go to the national convention where the nominee of the Republican Party is chosen. But once the so-called Santorum voters leave from the caucus, the Ron Paul supporters stay for the party business where the delegates are chosen, vying to be chosen as those delegates. You supposedly need 1,144 delegates in order to get a majority and to get the Republican Party's nomination. In theory, the people who are chosen to be delegates to the convention are supposed to go to the convention and say, oh, all the people at my caucus love Rick Santorum, therefore I'm a Rick Santorum delegate. Whatever their personal view is, in theory, we think of that delegate as reflecting the expressed view of the people at the caucus who said who they liked. But what if the delegate who goes to the convention says, I don't care what all those crazy people in the sweater vests thought. I'm a delegate for Ron Paul. That's the Ron Paul strategy, as best as I can make it out. outstay the other candidates' supporters at the caucuses in the hopes of becoming a delegate, regardless of what the caucus decided. That's why they're saying we may very well win in Minnesota, even though Rick Santorum won Minnesota. They are breaking the connection between who people expressed a preference for at the caucus and how that will is expressed in the bigger Republican Party process of picking the nominee. In other words, it doesn't matter who you voted for, your vote counts for Ron Paul. This is what the Ron Paul campaign says they are doing. It's not a secret. Look in their press release. They're giving examples. In one precinct in Larimer County, the straw poll vote was 23 for Santorum, 13 for Paul, 5 for Romney, 2 for Gingrich. There were 13 delegate slots from that precinct in Larimer County, and Ron Paul got all 13. Not a secret. They are explaining that they are doing this. Is this legal? Apparently this is legal. At least it seems to be under Republican Party rules. The delegates are supposed to reflect the view of the caucus or the precinct that they came from, but nobody says they have to. And that weakness is why Ron Paul, I think, looks very excited every night when he apparently is losing these states, but he doesn't think he is.